Good afternoon. We'll just recap a little. Last time we had started the sutra, Yogaha Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And we had initially taken Taurya Saab's translation. Yoga is the calming of the chitta and healing of the psychic nature. Now, the word vritti we saw was patterning of the mind stuff. That there is a basic mind stuff, and the patterning of that mind stuff is what we call as vritti. This patterning we also saw as a wave on the lake of the mind. And we asked ourselves the question that whether it is the calming of the waves, which is chitta vritti nirodha, or whether it is the identification of the wave, the breaking of that identification, the waves go on, it does not matter, is that chitta vritti nirodha. So we had last time looked at both these sides of the same sutra. We saw that through the meditative process, there is a possibility of calming the waves. And if at a certain point there is a gap between two waves, what usually happens is that there is no gap. A stone falls in the water, there are ripples, and before the ripples can calm down, another stone falls in the water. But if there is a gap between two waves, then there is no vritti to be identified with. And the person who is identified with the vritti would go back, sit on the bench, and he would be just the observer of the mind. So that would be the sutra after this, drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. But we said here there is a small problem, because when we later study the vrittis, we will see that one of the vrittis is nindra, or Patanjali calls as nidra. And he says the identification with abhav, the identification with absence is nidra. So we'll go into that when we study the vrittis. So I may calm the mind, I may reach a state where there is a gap between two waves, but my old habit of identifying will, instead of taking me back on the bench, I'll create a wave out of that absence. I'll create a vritti out of that absence, identify with that absence, and that is the vritti of nidra. So we looked at this. So now we'll have to look at it from one or two more angles. One of the translations we can take of the word chitta is an inner instrument where all our memory patterns, all our sanskars are deposited. You can say it is a repository for memory pattern. It is a library, a place where they are stored. Now, we'll have to try to understand how the inner instrument works. When I look at something, there is a subtle brain within me, which Taurya Sahib calls as the manas. We say we have four inner instruments: man, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. So the man, the manas part of it, when I pay attention to something, now attention comes from some other source. It goes through the mind, but it comes from beyond the mind. Now, when I pay attention to something, if I'm looking at you, you are broken down into electromagnetic impulses, and the manas goes out. It goes out and brings these electromagnetic impulses in through the five senses. And there's a big process which goes on with those electromagnetic impulses. We won't go into that process. These electromagnetic impulses are called as tanmatra. Tanmatra means minimum measure. And they recreate your image on the screen of the mind. And when the image is recreated on the scene of the mind, the manas has done its job. It has brought the electromagnetic impulses inside. It has recreated the image. So I feel I'm looking at you, whilst actually I'm looking at that image inside. It takes that image to another inner instrument called the aham, the ahankar. The ahankar attaches a label to that, like or dislike, good or bad. It attaches a label to it. And then the manas from the ahankar takes that to the final authority, which is the buddhi, the inner intelligence. The inner intelligence has two functions. The buddhi has two functions. The first is the throwing of light. So it throws light upon what the manas has brought in front of it. And the second function is to make a decision. So it makes a decision and tells the manas to give that decision to the, what do you call, karma indriyas, to the five, to the hands, feet, mouth, tongue, whatever, to fulfill that objective. I'll just go through this in a different way. So here we see that there is no involvement of chitta, right? The manas went out, it saw the image, it broke the image down into electromagnetic impulses. Those impulses came through the five senses. It recreated the image on the screen of the mind. It took that image to the ahankar. The ahankar attached a label. The ahankar then took it to the buddhi. The buddhi said yes, no, whatever, gave it back to the ahankar. The ahankar told the manas to pass the order to the organs of action. Now, we'll just take an example of this. I go to a mithai shop, a sweetmeat shop, and I see a beautiful sweetmeat there. So my manas goes out. It breaks the image down into electromagnetic impulses, brings them in through my five senses, and on the screen of the mind, I think I'm looking at that beautiful whatever rasgulla or whatever it is. And it then takes that image to the aham. The aham immediately will attach a label to it. I like this a lot. It's very nice. And it will take it to the buddhi, but the buddhi will say, there's a possibility of getting diabetes. You can't eat this. So it will say, no. The aham will pass that message to the manas. The manas will tell the hands, don't pick up that sweetmeat. You're not supposed to eat it. The inner authority has said no. And this is how it has functioned. Now, the next day, I may go again into that sweetmeat shop. Again, the manas goes out. Again, it sees the sweet. Again, it creates the image on the screen of the mind. The ahankar takes it to the buddhi, or is taking it to the buddhi. But by now, the memory of the past experience is there within me. This memory is stored in something called chitta. So before the aham can take it to the buddhi, the chitta will intervene. And it will say, last time you took it to that guy upstairs, he said, no, don't take it there. Let us both decide. You tell the organs of action to pick up that rasgulla and eat it. Forget that guy inside the buddhi and This action of the chitta is called as chitta vritti, and once that happens in our life, there is no light of the buddhi. So yoga could also be nirodh, the stopping of this chitta vritti. Because we are taking one translation of the word chitta as the inner instrument. Krishnamurti kept on lecturing his whole life. And some of the things he used to say is that thought cannot see the present moment. Thought is made of memory, and memory, when you bring memory to the present moment, you're conditioning the present moment. So the chitta is the repository of memory. And when the chitta comes in between, then we are looking at that mithai through past memory, and through past memory we are acting upon that, and this happens throughout our life. So this could be another meaning. We are just trying to look at the different shades of meaning of yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. Now we can take this in another way also. Certain things are inbuilt within our body-brain system. If we look in nature, the instinctive center in nature is an inbuilt mechanism. No mother has to teach, no bird which is a mother, a she-bird does not have to teach her daughter how to make a nest. It is pre-recorded within that bird's instinctive mechanism. So in nature, many things in the nature, in animals, is already pre-recorded, right? At a certain age, the he-lion will not recognize that this is my daughter. He'll just recognize this is another lioness. See, so all this is pre-recorded inside. Similarly, when the soul takes birth and is given the use of a mind, certain things are pre-recorded in the mind. And we have to look at this sutra through that. Now, we can take the meaning of the word vritti to mean the image which is created on the screen of the mind. So we take it as that. So the manas goes out, it brings in the electromagnetic impulses, and it recreates an image on the screen of the mind. And that is vritti. And Patanjali is saying yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. Now, when an image comes into the mind, it is inbuilt, pre-recorded. It is a primary function of the mind to divide itself into two parts: the observing part and the observed part. The observing part, the Patanjali in the next sutra is going to call as drashtuhu, the drashta, the seer. And the observed part we will call as vritti. So the seer is looking at the scene, the mind is in two parts, but in that moment the seer gets identified with the vritti. So Patanjali is not talking about the identification, we can say. He's not bothered about that. What he's saying is that this basic inbuilt quality of the mind, inbuilt function of the mind to divide itself into two parts, one into vritti, one into seer. If at that part we are conscious enough to bring vritti nirodha, to cancel the vritti in some way, then what remains is only the seeing part, tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthana. Right? So this is a totally different way we can look at. So this sutra. Right? Now, so we have looked at this sutra in many different ways: calming of the chitta, calming of the fluctuations, not identifying with the fluctuations, leaving the fluctuations as they are. We have looked at chitta as a repository for memory, and we've also looked at the basic quality of the mind to divide into two, right? Because at that moment when it divides into two, Krishnamurti says the observer is the observed, it sticks over there, and that's the end of the matter. So we have looked at this from different angles. Now I just want to many commentators have talked of the mind as the mind field, and later on I want to talk about the body brain system as an electrical field, but I just want to touch on it a little here before we go into the next sutra. When we are born, at the moment of birth, some electricity enters into the body brain system. Where this electricity comes from, what is the source, is the greatest mystery of life. And the machine which was not alive, with that electricity coming in, the machine becomes alive. It's like I put on the switch and my computer becomes alive. This electricity rises through the backbone. It penetrates through two chakras called Mooladhara and Swadhisthana, and it creates a spark of electricity which rises up the backbone. This rising electricity in yoga is called as Sushumna. Now, this electricity, this rising electricity, and as long as that electricity is moving up through the backbone, we are alive, the five senses are working. One day that electricity goes back to its source. That's the end of the matter. Okay, the electricity has come. Okay. Now, this electricity which is rising up the backbone, we will call it as Atma, the spirit. Wherever there is a movement of electricity, at right angles to that movement of electricity, there is a creation of an electromagnetic field. This electromagnetic field is there all the time, all 24 hours, and it moves through our nerves, it moves through our muscles. This electromagnetic field we will call as soul. The electricity which moves up through the backbone we will call as spirit, and this field, this field which it makes, which it creates, we will call as soul. So at the moment of birth, this is what happens. We'll go deeper into this later on, because the receptacle for that soul, if you take the soul as a liquid, the receptacle for that soul has been created in the child from the beginning, and it goes in and fills those old patterns. Right? So we'll take that later on. But what I'm trying to say is, at the moment of birth, when the child breathes in, the minute the breathing in starts, there is electricity in the air around, which we call as prana. And that prana enters through two nadis called Ida and Pingla. So now we have the original electricity at the moment of birth moving up, called the Sushumna. And we have two other created electricities which come through the process of breathing, which we call as Ida and Pingla. And what do you call? It is these two electrical fields which man, dominates the life of man throughout his life. And the outer field gets angry and it passes on to the inner field. The inner field says, I am angry. This is the meaning of identification. So the vritti is in the outer field. The identification with the vritti comes from the inner field. So we can look at this sutra in this way. Later on, we'll go very deep into how these electrical fields are created, what they mean, right? So we just had a look at the second sutra. Yoga, Chitta, Vritti, Nirodha. Yoga to join, Chitta to perceive, Nirodha to stop the identification, to stop the identification, right? We'll go to the next part. Now, before we start the next sutra, we must talk of the practice of non-identifying. We cannot immediately reach a state where we are observing the workings of the mind. But we can say no to the, what do you call, negative emotions of the mind. Supposing I feel anger is rising within me, I can bring my consciousness to a level where I can say no to that anger. I don't want to go with you, right? So this process of saying no and then moving on to something called the pause, this will be the beginning of Nirodha. I'll talk about the pause in another sutra because pause is Nirodha. Right? Now Patanjali is saying, if the seer is not identified with a wave, if he is not identified with a pattern, where is he? So he says, tada, then. Tada means then. Drashtuhu, the seer. Swarupe avasthanam. He is in his own form. Please understand, in the first talk, we talked about form in two ways, the subtle form and the gross form. And we said there are two kinds of gross form. One is the subtle form gets material, like the subtle form in the, what do you call, mind of the architect becomes a house, a gross form. And the other, we said, through habituation, the subtle form becomes a habit within me. And that is also a gross form, even though we can't see the habit with the five senses. Now this word, avasthanam. Avasthanam. Ava means away. Stha means to stand. Sthanam, the act of standing. The act of standing away. Then the seer is in his own form standing away from the wave. He's not allowing himself to be identified. So in the first sutra, we feel Patanjali is talking about the calming of the waves, yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. In the second sutra, we feel he's talking about the process of non-identification with the wave. So you pause the identification. You're on the verge of, you're looking at the wave, you see this is the wave of anger. We are on the verge of saying, I am angry. When I say I am angry, I'm identified. If I say Rajen is angry and I'm looking, something different, right? But the minute I say I am angry, I have what you call modified that wave. I have changed it. It has become a vritti. I have patterned it into something and I'm now identified. Then the drashtu is not in his own state. He is with the wave. So he's saying standing away, avasthanam, the one standing away. Now we'll look at this in another way. Every journey starts from the present moment. But The present moment is not a guarantee for starting the journey. Let me come to this. I may be listening to good music, and I may be dissolved in that music. There is no daydreaming, there is no brooding. I'm totally one with the music. But have I started my spiritual journey? No. No. I may be in deep meditation. I may be one with the meditation. But have I started my spiritual journey? No. Now here we have to understand what we talked about in the first talk, that the present moment is a cross section of two times, the horizontal time and the vertical time. Now, when we come to the present moment, the very fact that we are in the present moment means our attention is totally in the present moment. So our attention is on this line over here, this line, at this point. But we want to move up in that present moment vertically. We want to move up vertically. And we can only do that if we take some attention out of the present moment and take it on self. This we call the division of attention. Am I coming across in this? You see, I'm listening to music. I'm totally in the music, but there's no division of attention. I'm still in horizontal time, even though I'm in the present moment. I have not started my journey in vertical time. Please give me a thumbs up if you're understanding what I'm trying to say. But if I divide my attention, I take a small arrow of attention inside to who is in the present moment, who is experiencing the present moment, then for the first time, I start my spiritual journey. And that who, that drashta, who is there, I have a sense of that drashta. I have a sensitivity of that drashta. I have a sensitivity of his avastha. Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. So I may be engaged in something which I really love to do, right? I mean, if you're day trading in the stock market, you're definitely in the present moment. There's no time to, go into the past or the future, right? But you're definitely not on any spiritual journey, right? So there is the present moment, but in the present moment, I take a little attention. 90% of my attention I leave in the present moment. I take a little out of the present moment and I say, who is in this present moment? Who is experiencing this present moment? And in that taking out of attention, in that moment of taking out of attention, where I go towards myself, there is a definite feeling of moving from horizontal time into vertical time. I'll try to explain this. If I'm sitting with somebody I love, then I don't experience the movement of time, right? It is as if I'm experiencing some other time. I'm lifted into some other time. We can give this in another way. We'll talk about this. Supposing I eat a chocolate. So I can put the chocolate in my mouth and I eat the chocolate. But I say that this is the only chocolate I have. And my wife has given me a strict order that after eating this chocolate, no more. This is your one chocolate per week. And you're not going to get another chocolate, right? So then I want to stretch that moment of eating the chocolate. I want to expand that moment of eating the chocolate. So I put the chocolate in my mouth and I'm savoring it and I'm trying to expand. So now I'm going from moment to moment, where I'm trying to stretch that moment. For a moment, I experience as if time is stretched. It is not just the present moment, but the stretching of the present moment, as if I'm experiencing not the present moment, some eternity, some shasvata. So when I take my attention a little bit inside to see who is experiencing the present moment, in that moment of taking attention inside, I experience another time. I experience as if I've moved from horizontal time, as if the taste of this present moment, the what you call flavor of this present moment has expanded in some other time. I don't know. I've tried my best to come across. I hope I've been able to explain it in this way. So it is in this moment that our spiritual journey starts. We have now entered another dimension of time. Patanjali says, he says that in this dimension of time, there are avasthas. There are rungs of the ladder, right? So I'm taking another meaning of the word avastha. Avastha meaning state, So Patanjali says there are different, steps of the ladder. Each step of the ladder he calls as avastha. So he says that the minute the chitta vritti nirodha happens, then he says tada, then drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, you're in that avastha where you can experience your swarup in one avastha, one step, another step, another step. Now let's take this in another way. We have something called our being. And last time we talked about our being, that is what we are, myself. Right? Now, as I rise in consciousness, I rise in my being. I rise in my own being. This being is Swarupe, my Swarup, my original form. Now, let us take the Yoga Sutra again. In this, the third sutra, he says, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. In the last sutra of Kaivalyapada, the 195th sutra, he is going to say Swarupe Pratishtha. So, in this sutra, he is saying Swarupe Avastha. In the final sutra, he is saying Swarupe Pratishtha. In Swarupe Avastha, we have begun our journey. In Swarupe Pratishtha, we have come to the final stage of our journey. The Pratishtitha, I don't know, established. In English, we will call it. He is now established in his own nature. In this, he has just begun the journey in his own nature. So don't think that when we say the Chitta Vritti Nirodha, you have a glimpse of the inner seer. There is an arrow of attention which goes inside, and there is a glimpse of the inner seer. This is just the beginning of the journey. Nothing has changed. That inner seer still has a lower psychic nature. In that lower psychic nature, there are so many negative emotions. That inner seer is full of attitudes. That inner seer is full of habits. All that is lying in his being. And as he rises up this ladder, he will be free of negative emotions. He will break mechanical habits and form conscious habits. This journey will start from Swarupe Avastha to Swarupe Pratishtha. And this is the journey of yoga. Tada drashtu Swarupe Avasthanam, drashtu Swarupe Pratishtanam. This is the journey of the Yoga Sutra, right? What he's talking about. So he's saying that by pausing this modification, this seer remains away from the vritti, standing away from the vritti in his own form, right? And if that happens once we have tasted blood, it has to happen once. It has to happen once. In that moment, then we keep on practicing for it and we rise this ladder. I'll try to understand the science. What is pulling me down? What is helping me to rise up? How can I be free from what is pulling me down? How can I keep on practicing that which takes me up? So, but this first moment, tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. He's standing away from the lake. It's one moment of non-identification. Now, in that moment, he feels, we saw that he feels time in a certain different way, as if time has expanded a little and he has moved from this momentary time into eternal time for a fraction of a moment. Now we'll try to see it in another way. In that moment, he suddenly sees that he has full control over the vritti. Now, this is one characteristic of drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, is we saw the changing of time. Another characteristic, there's a sudden inner feeling of power. I have the power of not being angry. Right? I have the power of saying no to the anger. I have the power of saying no to anything that is seducing my attention. My attention is now in my own hands. I will not allow it to be seduced. Right? So there is that momentary feeling of power inside. Now here I must, because Gurdjieff calls this power as will. And I must make a small difference between will, that is the spiritual power. Tawariya Sahib used to call it a spiritual will, and willpower. Willpower. We must make a difference. You don't agree with me, right? And I overpower you and force you to agree with me. That is willpower. That is willpower. In willpower, we change outer circumstances. We change outer circumstances. I may not have enough of money. And I say, okay, I'm going to earn so much of money. This is willpower. And I may even earn it. Right? It's not spiritual power. Willpower has aggressiveness. Willpower has authority. When in that moment, when suddenly we are free of the identification and we are standing away, we will experience a feeling of inner power, not willpower. Not willpower. It is not the power to force someone to agree to you. No, it's not that power. It is the power to remain exactly as we are, to accept life as it is in this present moment. That is spiritual will. The inner will to keep my desires on the side. I don't want to change anything. Spiritual will. Now I'm going to bring to a third characteristic of this momentary glimpse which we have all just had of tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. One, we said that the feeling of time changes. Second, we said there is a feeling of inner power, will, and there is joy. There is joy. Now, I'm going to, in Christianity, they have a saying, thy will be done. Thy will be done. You know, usually I talk about this in a very local Gujarati language. So I'll just put that before you, then we'll go to the English. Any ichha ane mari ichha. You get what I hope you get what I'm trying to say. His will and my will. In fulfillment of my will, there is satisfaction. I get a new car, there is satisfaction. But when his will comes through me and works through me, there is joy. There is joy on being empty and allowing his will to work through me. I hope I'm coming across in this. Okay. Can you see? When I fulfill the desires of my ego, and my ego has so many desires, you know, then with each fulfillment, there is a moment of satisfaction, right? Okay, I got a new car, but then tomorrow the satisfaction is going to go away, whatever. Or maybe I bought a new shirt or something of that sort, right? But when his will manifests through me, the higher will manifest through me, thy will be done. Thank you. Thy will be done. Then there's so much joy when we can keep the ego on the side, the small satisfactions of the ego on the side, then some other power manifests through us. So in that moment of tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, there is a feeling of change in time. There is a feeling of power inside, and there is a feeling that that power is from some higher source. It is just a loan from some higher central bank. It is manifesting through me, and there is this inner feeling of gratitude that it is manifesting through me, and in that there is joy and happiness. So these are some of the feelings which will come with that one moment of tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. But of course, we do need our teacher to be here to tell us that don't stop here. This is the beginning of the journey. You have to now start climbing the ladders of consciousness, and you have to work upon self, right? So this is the third sutra, right? And like I said last time, when this power reaches its highest possibility within us, that power, then that we reach a state inside the Lord of the mind, which Patanjali calls as Ishwar. Ish being power, Var being to choose, right? So I just want to talk about this. And he will take us through different stages where we will come to that state of Ishwar. So we'll take the next sutra, sutra number 4. And it is Vritti Sarupyam Itaratra. Have you taken Saurya Sahib's translation? Now here we'll ask a question, you know. That guy is sitting on the bench. He's looking at the waves in the water. And suddenly we come and say, where is he? He's not sitting on the bench. He has gone with whatever vritti, right? So Patanjali says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Then drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam, in his own form. But if that guy is not on the bench, if he is not in swarupe avasthanam, then where the hell is he? He has gone with whichever vritti. Vritti sarupyam itaratra, here and there. He's what do you call, identifying with whichever vritti, whichever wave here and there. So it's so much beauty. It's like so poetic, these words of his, I mean, the way he puts it. So he says, in that, if he is not in that state, then sa means to take. Roop means shape. To take the shape of that wave. He has taken that shape. Now, one of the things which we must practice is at what moment do we label something? I'm looking at a tree, right? And I say apple tree, right? I have named it. Can I pause in my consciousness? Can I pause in my consciousness for a moment before naming it? Very difficult because we are so habituated in this process of naming. And the minute I say apple tree, the mind stuff has taken a certain form. The mind stuff has taken a certain form. And we practice this, to just observe the tree. You can go into the fields, you can go into the garden, look at a tree and just practice looking without naming. It is a very deep practice, very, very deep practice. Right? So, this is our normal state, and it's very unfortunate that we have to say that man lives 70 years of his life, and not for a moment does he experience that there is a moment where he can be free of this state, where he's not attached to any vritti. And to say this is very difficult, but this is what it is. It's what it is. That we don't understand this, that there is a state where we are not bound by any vritti. Now, we had last time talked a little about the process of habituation, and we had talked about Dronacharya. Right? And vrittis get habituated. This process of identification gets habituated, and we have habits, thinking habits, feeling habits, sensing habits, moving habits, etc. Now, here I want to talk a little bit about Mr. Thawaria Sahib's, what do you call, translation? Just, can you read it? Yeah. Yeah, can you just read it? Yeah.
Up till now, the inner man has identified himself with his forms and with their active modifications.
Now he's talking of something very deep over here. Inner man and outer man. Inner man and outer man. At present, we don't have a crystallized inner man. We have the substances to crystallize an inner man. But those substances we waste in the fulfillment of the urges of the outer man. So I go to a shop and I see something very beautiful, and my attention is totally hypnotized by that, and I don't realize that the what you call deeper substances which I have within myself, which are used to build an inner man, I'm throwing out somewhere, I'm wasting out somewhere. I'm going to come into this stuff. So the inner man is a slave of the outer man. Actually, there is no inner man, but we will say the inner man is a slave of the outer man. Gurdjieff says we don't have an astral body, we have to create an astral body. Then what body do we have beyond the physical body? Right? It's called the emotional body. The emotional body follows the urges of the organic body, the outer body, the body of the five senses. It reacts to the urges of those of the outer body. Now the whole process starts with something called self-observation. Self-observation. Now, what is the process of self-observation? In self-observation, I divide myself into two. I as the observer, Rajen as it. I looking at it, Rajen. Initially, I don't sense this gap. It takes a long time to create this gap. Right? Initially, everything is mixed. So, if my son does not do well in his exams, I say Rajen is unhappy. I am looking. I am looking. I'm separate. I am separate. And we keep practicing this. We keep that I am non-judgmental. I say you hurt me. You disturbed my peace. So I'll say Rajan is getting angry, is getting irritated with this person. I am watching. And slowly something will separate between Rajan and I. So many higher substances which we have in our body, subtle substances. You have to draw two bodies. Huh? Go ahead.
I'm just trying to get the phone.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi.
Which we are wasting in all our desires. When we self-observe, we will be creating another body outside our body. Can you draw it? I'll try to explain this. That is why I just took a brief this thing of the body as an electromagnetic field, the body-brain system as an electromagnetic field. Supposing I am observing myself, over a period of time, I will extract certain substances from my physical organism. They will come together and I will have a subtle form with consciousness outside of my body, looking at my body. It is as if there is no physical form, but a new electromagnetic field has been created, which is looking at this electromagnetic field. This process Gurdjieff calls as crystallization. Suddenly the inner man has crystallized. The inner man has come together. I'll talk of this in some other way and come back to this. Supposing I have this deep urge, within me to take revenge on someone. Right? And it can happen to anyone. So even when I'm sitting for having my lunch, or even maybe I'm enjoying a movie outside in a theater or something, but the thought of taking revenge comes even there, and it disturbs my this thing. And then I go on a trip where in my mind I'm taking revenge with him, I'm taking revenge with him. this way and that way and all the methods of taking revenge. Now, can you see the process of habituation over here? Every time I think of taking revenge upon that person, I'm reinforcing an electrical field. So within the body's electrical field, I'm creating a small disturbance field, which may even become more powerful than the whole electromagnetic field of my body. My whole life, I may, give up my whole life just to take revenge on someone. And if you read past novels and if you read novels of the medieval ages and all, you'll see that this is a very common thing. This was. What has happened? That away from the electromagnetic field of the body, a new field has crystallized. I'm using Gurdjieff's word, crystallized, formed. We can also take the word from the Gita where Krishna says that the field has a sanghat. It has collected into, sang thayo che, Krishna says in the Gita, sanghat. Now the problem is that this electromagnetic field of revenge is not going to die with my physical body. It's going to persist. It's going to persist. I don't want to go into what happens with it. What I'm trying to say is that I am now in a jail from which it is going to be very difficult for me to be free. Can you understand? I mean, just you have insulted me, and that thought that you have insulted me and repeating that thought over here, what it creates, it may create a devil within me which will not die with the physical body. It will not die with the physical body. If you read Miss Tauriya Sahib's Yoga Sutra, towards the end, you will see there are what he calls intensity charts. And he's saying that by holding this thought over here, it may not be a thought of revenge. One thought is the thought of revenge, right? I may be jealous of someone, right? And my whole life, I see that person, the thought of that person, and jealousy comes. So I'm repeating that thought of jealousy over here. And Mr. Tauriya has done a beautiful job of which thought has created which disease in the physical body. And he calls them as intensity charts. And that is there within his Yoga Sutra, it is there. So we can see that this is the effect. Now here I'm moving up on the ladder of consciousness. And the drashtuhu is looking at something, he is observing himself, but far away. And in this process of observation, he may come to a state where he crystallizes, show two bodies, where he crystallizes another electromagnetic field, which is looking at his physical body electromagnetic field. Suddenly, this is what Gurdjieff calls as you have now created a conscious astral body. It is as if somebody is standing outside of me, looking at me. Or another man standing outside, looking at this, you can say, you can show it in that way. You know, somebody standing out and looking at.
Sir, then it means in both the situations we have created the astral body, in the self-awareness also. And
okay, can you see this guy is looking at this guy, right? So initially I was just trying to separate, but as I'm able to hold it for longer periods of time, a time will come where I'll materialize an electrical field, not a physical field, which is looking at this physical field, the organic body. So now we understand what Mr. Tavare is saying. Can you repeat his translation of the sutra? Up till now, the inner man has been identified.
Up till now, the inner man has identified himself with his forms
and their active modifications. Now the inner man is separate from the, what do you call, organic man, the outer man. And the senses may say something, oh, I like this, but the inner man may say, pause, no. And now the organic body, the outer man will follow the inner man. Instead of the inner man following the outer man, now the outer man, the organic body, will follow what the inner man says. It will follow the will of the inner man. We have now reached a different avastha. We have moved from that first moment of drashtu swarupe avasthanam to a little higher avastha. So this was the third sutra, Vritti Sarupyam Ita Ratra. Right? Now, we'll take the fourth sutra. We'll stop after the fourth sutra. Vrittaya Panchataya Klishta Aklishta. The vrittis are 5. They are painful or not painful. Stop. What's our net problem? What are these vrittis? Let us try to understand that what these vrittis are in very plain language. I'm sitting here in the present moment, but there are 5 kinds of seductions, 5 kinds of waves, which will take me out of the present moment. I'm just talking in very simple terms, very, very simple terms. These 5 kinds of seductions, Patanjali calls as vrittis, which seduce my attention in a certain way, and they take me out of the present moment, right? So he's saying these vrittis are 5, and they are of 2 kinds, klisht and aklisht. Now, this is very important, very, very important. Klisht. Klisht comes from the root klish, to harm. Have you written that? Yeah. To afflict. To afflict, to harm, to afflict. Of course, Tavaria Sahib has just written painful or not painful. Now, what do they mean by painful or not painful? And I want to put my personal translation over here. In the jail or out of the jail? Right? Now, it's very simple. Have I sown a seed of repetition? Supposing we go for a picnic or we go to see a beautiful sunset somewhere. And the sunset is so beautiful, right? So that is aklisht. There is no, what do you call, nothing painful, nothing harmful. But after everything is over, I say, tomorrow we will come again and see the sunset. Now here I have sown a seed of repetition. Again, I'll try to explain this. Later on in the second chapter, Patanjali is talking about something called klesha. Right? Klesha are the seeds of karma. But how are the seeds of karma created? They are created through residue. We have a beautiful symbolism where the Lord Vishnu is sleeping on Sheshnag. Sheshnag. Shesh means remainder. Shesh means residue. Now, I'm very hungry. Maybe I want to eat vanilla ice cream or something. And I get vanilla ice cream and I eat the vanilla ice cream. And I say, every week we should have one helping of vanilla ice cream. So in this enjoyment of this moment, I have added some remainder, some residue. This residue is called shesha. Right? If I just enjoyed the vanilla ice cream, right, and not created the desire to repeat it again, then I have just, then this enjoyment of the vanilla ice cream is aklishta. There is no klesh. But the minute I say I want to do this again, or I repeat it in my mind, we should do this many times. Am I coming across in this? Am I coming across in this? I'm creating an affliction. I'm sowing a seed of future pain. That is why he says these vrittis are painful or not painful. He does not say they bring you happiness. He says either they are painful or not painful. Maybe if you come to pick me up in a beautiful car. Yesterday, somebody had put up on the internet all the scenes of the, what do you call, flood, and somebody's beautiful BMW car was going away in the flood like this. So you come to pick me up in a beautiful car, and I say, when you come to drop me back, I say, tomorrow you come with this car only to pick me up. You get it? Now, so I'm adding a residue. Now, this is a very, very deep subject because Vishnu, the Lord Vishnu, is sleeping on Shesh. When I'm creating residue, I'm sowing the seed for the repetition of that vritti. So he's saying that there are 5 kinds of vritti, and each of these vrittis can be with the seed of repetition or can be without the seed of the repetition. If they've sown with the seed of repetition, then you are in jail. I'm in prison. It has to repeat. When it will repeat, water, that is a different matter. But I've already sown the seed. When the seed gets water, it will become a flower in a tree or whatever. Right? So he's saying there are 5 kinds of vrittis. Either they bring pain or they are not painful. Now, let us look at it in another way. This sesh in which Vishnu Bhagwan, that means Lord Vishnu, is sleeping, is also called as Kundalini. Right? Now, there are 2 forms of Kundalini. One is called intensity, which is called as Kundalini, and one is called as pattern, which is called as Kulla Kundalini. Don't go by all the yoga books because they messed up all this. So in this moment, have I released intensity or have I created pattern? If in this moment some desire is left, some residue is left, some remainder is left, I feel after meeting you that you have gone away home and I feel that, oh, I should have talked to him this and I should have talked to him like this and I forgot to say this. There is some residue left, and man cannot live a single moment without some residue being left behind. So each moment I'm taking Shakti and creating Kula Kundalini. I'm putting it into a pattern of repetition. And in this moment, in a state of consciousness, if I can just live this moment with no residue at all, with no sowing of new desire, then in that moment, that a part of that Shakti which has been locked in so many patterns for thousands of years suddenly releases, and that energy becomes available to me. That is called as Kundalini. So Vishnu sleeping on Sheshnag, Shesh means remainder. Each moment of our lives, it is up to us whether there is some remainder or we live the moment so totality, with so much of totality that there is no remainder. It is this practice which we have to do. And he says, Vruttaya Panchataya, Klishta Aklisht. These vrittis are 5. They take you away from the present moment, right? They take you away from the present moment, and they can be with the seed of repetition or they can be without the seed of repetition. If they are with the seed of repetition, we are in jail, and that jail will only bring pain and suffering. And that is why the translation has been affliction, suffering, harmful, right? And if it is not there, then we are free of that pain or suffering, right? So these are the 5 vrittis. Before stopping over here, I just want to touch on the 5 vrittis, a little bit of homework before we meet next time, right? The 5 vrittis, I'm not going to explain them, are right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, sleep, memory. Please do work on these. Please do work on these. Now, we will just try to see it in a different way. I see something on the road. I think it is a snake. And I go there and it turns out to be a snake. It is right knowledge. I see something on the road. I think it is a snake, but I go there, it is a piece of string. Wrong knowledge. There is no snake on the road. I'm walking down the road, but I imagine a snake is going to come and cross over me. Imagination. I'm walking down the road and I remember my friend who told me that yesterday he was walking down this road and he, saw a snake. Memory. And I'm walking down the road and I'm frightened that a snake may be there and there is no snake, but that absence of the snake creates worry in me. Sleep, right? These are the 5 vrittis. Please work on them till we meet next time. Any questions? I'll take those questions.
Namaskar, Rajanji. Can you? Namaskar.
Who is this, please? Can you just identify?
Dr. Kalpana from Kenya. No, I just, sorry, I was if you can just repeat the right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, sleep, and memory. You gave a very fantastic this thing about the snake. I just want to capture it properly. Snake. If you see a snake and it
I
is a
see
snake,
something
that
on the
means
road which looks like
yeah.
a snake,
Okay.
and I go there and
Can
it is a snake.
No. Can I repeat it if I got it right? Yeah. And then if I think it's a snake, but it's a rope, that means it's a wrong knowledge.
No, first start from the
Then
beginning. First start from the beginning.
Okay.
Right
Start
knowledge.
one. I might think I see something and I may think it's a snake. If I go there and it is a snake, that's the right knowledge. Correct.
If it turns out to be a string, it is wrong
string,
knowledge.
wrong knowledge. And
it is
if
not
I
there, but I
imagine
imagine it to be there, it is imagination.
imagination.
Vikalpa.
Okay.
Vikalpa.
Vikalpa. Okay.
Vikalpa. Right? But my friend said yesterday he saw the snake on the road, and I remember what he said, right? And it becomes memory.
Okay, it becomes memory. Yeah, okay. And then
I'm worried that I may see a snake. Just now there's an absence of the snake, but that absence of the snake is creating worry within me, right?
okay.
Then it is sleep, because sleep is the vritti of absence.
So this is what I think, that you're worried that the snake. So I'm just thinking that maybe there's a snake, but it's not there, and I'm still worried about it. Is that what you mean? So is there any other explanation besides the snake? Would you?
No, we'll take that next time. We'll take that.
Okay.
Next time. I just
Fine.
wanted to give you a small, what do you call,
Yeah.
Just in one example, how the 5 vrittis, we can have a look at them.
Okay. And once more, can you repeat? Okay, this is Vikal. The right knowledge is called what in the Sanskrit words?
Praman.
Praman. Okay. The other one?
Viparyayo. Viparyayo.
Huh?
Viparya.
Viparya.
It is Viparya.
Viparya.
Viparya. Okay.
Viparya.
Okay. And then the Vikal. And then sleep.
Then it is imagination.
Okay.
Vikalpa.
Then
sleep, nidra.
Vikal. Memory.
Then sleep, nidra.
No, sleep is
and
nidra.
Then memory is the last one, smriti. Smriti.
No, memory is smriti.
Smriti, yes.
Smriti.
Smriti. SMRUTI.
Smriti. Okay, not smriti. Okay, fine. All right. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Maybe. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Wonderful class. Been following it long time. All this, and wonderful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Rajenji.
Any other questions, please? You can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself and come live.
May I ask a question, please, Mr. Gaur?
Yes, please go ahead.
Shukla. Rajan bhai, I'm still not clear with that sleep vriti, nidra ka isse jo nexus hai, wo meri samajh mein nahi aaya.
No, I have not gone into it. I'll have to go into it next time.
All right.
Right? What I'm trying to say is that there is an absence.
Yeah.
The vritti is like this: abhav pratyaya alambana vritti nindra.
Okay.
When there is an abhav, absence, right? I hug that alamban. I hug that. That vritti is nindra. When I'm identified with the absence.
Okay.
Right? When I'm identified with the absence, that vritti is nidra. So in the first state, I said, I'm calming the mind through meditation. And between 2 thoughts or 2 waves, there is no wave, there is an absence. But instead of coming back and sitting on the bench, I create a new vritti out of that absence and I get identified. You understand?
So it has nothing to do with the sleep per se.
No.
Sone se matlab nahi.
Abhav, the absence of
okay. All right.
Absence.
All right.
Sir, it is in a way related to sleep, in the sense that when we are sleeping, when we are in deep sleep, we are not aware.
We are not there.
Because we are not aware, there is no awareness. So whenever we are not having that awareness, we are in sleep. That is why it is important to know that what are the moments when we are not fully aware.
Right. Any other question?
Any other question, please?
Is it avidya?
Rajat, Sir, just a moment. Mr. Rajat has raised a hand for a very long time. Mr. Rajat, please go ahead. Switch on
Good
your
afternoon.
video, please.
Good afternoon. I can't see him. It is yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Rajan sir and everyone.
Yeah.
Actually, I have put the questions in the chat, so I would just recite. I have two questions. First is, does yoga chitta vritti nirodha means nirodha of chitta and vritti or nirodha of chitta's vritti? This is the first question. And the second question is nirodha of chitta and vritti or chitta's vritti is possible only during meditation? As whenever we do or even think of doing something or just take a nap in this world, vritti comes into play. It seems like we are bound to it in normal day-to-day situations. So how does it hold a practical implications when we are carrying out our day-to-day life activities? Thanks, sir. These are my two questions.
So this, I think I explained the Chitta Vritti Nirodh from many different angles.
Yes, sir.
Like I said, that Patanjali has not put any verb in that Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Actually, there's no verb in all of 195 sutras.
Yes, sir.
So he's not telling us whether Chitta Vritti Nirodha has to be done, whether it is a state,
Yes.
right? But I would suppose that in the beginning, we have to practice it, right? I'm on the verge of getting angry, I pause, I do Nirodha of the anger.
Okay, sir.
Right? You don't have to sit in meditation to do this. This can be every moment in life. Can you get it? I am getting aggressive of my point of view. Suddenly, I pause my aggressiveness. Can you get it? So initially, we practice doing this. A point may come where this practice becomes spontaneous. Then Chitta Vritti Nirodha is not done, it happens.
Okay.
It becomes my second nature. You understand?
So,
because he has not put any verb over there. So I don't know what he's talking about.
so
Nor has he given any definition of Chitta or any definition of Vritti.
okay, sir.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
You have to look at it from so many angles, all the possibilities.
So, in one sense, you are trying to say that, like when you are trying to bring it by practice, the nirodha of chitta and vritti.
So in our
So we
initial
are trying to
stages
make
as a
it.
student, we practice it.
So we are
And then
trying
our
to
point
make it
comes
as
where
a
we
habit.
don't have to practice, it becomes automatic, it becomes spontaneous.
So it will be like a habituation.
Huh?
It will be like a habituation.
Not a hallucination. No.
Habituation.
Habituation, but a conscious habit in place of a mechanical habit.
Okay, sir.
Just now I have a mechanical habit of reacting.
So
in place of that, I put a conscious habit of pausing. Nirodh.
Okay, sir.
Pause means to Nirodh. You get
so
it?
it is just a matter of practice.
Initially, there is practice. A state may become, when it becomes second nature, then there's no need to practice.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Vatsalaji, go ahead.
So, this state of sleep that you have mentioned, is it akin to avidya, ignorance, not being aware, as Gaur said?
No, no, no. Avidya is a klesh.
Okay.
Nidra is a vritti.
Okay.
We identify with a vritti. But when we form a habit of identification, it becomes a klesh.
Okay. It's a big difference. Big difference. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, yes.
Sir, you said when self-observation, through self-observation, the inner man crystallization starts happening, and then the astral body is created. What happens when when we create a new electromagnetic field of revenge, like you gave the examples? Where it happens then? It is also happening outside?
Inside.
No, no, it is happening within my electromagnetic field. I'm creating a new field. Now, supposing I have a field to protect myself, right? But now I have this new field of revenge. right? That is going to create a window in my field. And that may allow outside influences of a certain kind to come in, which I will accept, right? So I'm creating a new electromagnetic field, and this could be with revenge is just one example I've given.
Yeah. Mm.
Right? It could be I am right and nobody else is right. Then it could be another field like that. So at these fields, what I was trying to say is they survive death. They don't die with the
Yes.
physical body.
Yes.
It is here we have to be careful, because now we are going into a long-term imprisonment, not short-term imprisonment, right? So,
Okay. Got it.
Rajan bhai, if you permit me, I can add
Please do.
something to that.
please, yeah, please do. Please do.
Hema, it is like this, that when we are caught up in some kind of an emotional instinct, then we are creating something within ourselves. Now, even if it is there, if we are more aware, we become observers of that, what is happening, then that the energy, that emotion is no longer there. We have become observers. So the energy entrapped in that emotion is released, and it starts crystallizing the astral body. It is like somebody is by nature, gets very much scared. And one is asked to pass through one is going in the night outside, and there is some kind of a fear that, one may be waylaid or there may be wild animals, and then suddenly the whole awareness comes away. And in that moment, the fear takes a back seat. The fear is not there. One is only observing what is there. One becomes totally aware of the surroundings. Then there is a release from the fear, and the astral body will be formed. It's a very subtle kind of thing. Everything comes back to that observing. When we begin to observe our emotions, then we start rising above. And the emotional body is no longer the controlling body. The astral body becomes more and more strong. And Rajan bhai, I am reminded of something that happened in my association, during my association with Solit Avariya ji. Once I was likely to get a job, and I had this kind of great attachment to, getting that job. And I went to him for some advice. And after listening to me, and he just gave me some kind of a thing that you don't try anything. If you get it, you take it. So it was quite a come down for me, because I was mentally very much attached to having that job. So I said, if I don't try, how am I going to get it? I won't get it. And then he sort of snubbed me, and he said, why did you come to me? You have asked for my advice. I have given you that advice. And now you are using your petty mind to find holes in my advice. And then after some time, when I was leaving, he called me back and he said, take one mantra from me today. And then in his trademark smile, he winked at me and he said, don't ask for anything and never say no to anything. And it was a great teaching that he gave, that only when we drop our own desires or cravings, then we can become participants in life. We can become observers of life and just be there to look at things. So
if we can put our petty will on the side,
petty
then
will
his
is on
will
the
works
side.
through us.
So it was wonderful. And then another master, I had something, I wanted to give up my job, do something. I was not very happy. So this master told me that it's a good thought that you are not attached to your job. So keep that in mind, but don't act on it. So again, he was just being observing and not doing anything. He said, if God decides that you have to get out of the job, then circumstances will be created and you won't be able to continue even for a day. So, but if it does not happen, you do your work. That is the assigned job. So this is a wonderful way how the masters gave the teachings and how they mold our lives.
The saying is, ask not from life, but reject not what life brings to your doorstep.
Yes, yes, so beautiful. And this analogy of then the other thing that you gave some homework about the five this vrittis. Sulibhai once asked me that he said, for the next 1 month or 2 months, at least 25 times in a day, you tell yourself, stop. And just look at what was the last thought that you had in your mind. And I did that, and then I found out that 90% or more than 90% of the times, the thoughts were governed by memory. And I became aware of how memory was playing such an important role in deciding the way my mind would function. And this was a great help in getting out of that, getting to know about the grooves of memory that were governing me. And in fact, by becoming aware of that, it helped me get out of that trap of memory. So
can I suggest something over here?
Yes, please.
Instead of going to the next sutra next time, can I take one talk on pause, Nirodh?
Wonderful.
What you said, stop.
Yes, that it would be wonderful.
We can have one talk on pause and then we'll go to the next sutra.
Wonderful.
So the practice of pause, practice of Nirodh, and then we'll go to the next sutra.
Rajanji, I have one question.
Yes,
that is, you had in your last Tuesday when we had met, you had mentioned that about putting cotton in the right nostril, and you had mentioned that there is a video where you have already posted something on it. Can you just pass on the link to us?
Can you, what do you call, message Ketav? He will
yes.
Please message Ketav. He'll arrange to send you the
Thank you so
link
much.
to the
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Is there?
Sir, I have one doubt actually.
Please.
I'm H.L. Sharma. I have one doubt, sir. Actually, you started the lecture today with the manas going out. So that I couldn't just fathom how manas goes out and gets the electromagnetic waves, or it's just the senses which captures the waves and then get it to the manas. That is what.
The manas is molecular in nature.
Okay.
The buddhi is electronic in nature.
Okay.
Molecular in nature means it can take the shape of anything. Water is a molecule. So water takes the shape of the glass in which you put it. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Right. Now, when I throw my attention upon you, you are broken down into electromagnetic impulses, which the Shastra calls as tanmatra.
Yeah, tanmatra.
Right. The manas being molecular, it can go out of the senses, and through the senses, it brings those tanmatras inside. It acts as the courier service.
Okay.
Right. And those tanmatras travel up my backbone. They travel through the 5 lower chakras. And they come here to a place called the taluka. Right? And there many things happen. They meet an identical memory pattern and things happen. And a thought is formed. Now those tanmatras are electronic. A thought is molecular. The thought is molecular. So there is a stepping down of energy. So it is this manas which goes out and it brings in. Now the manas, being molecular, it can take the shape of water also.
Yeah.
And it can take the shape of a dam also. The minute I pause, Nirodh, what I call, I'm pausing the manas. I'm not allowing it to go through a certain action. Supposing the action is I'm taking a stick and hitting somebody. So the manas is commanding the hand to take a stick and hit. But before that, I'm pausing, Nirodh. And because the manas is molecular, I'm damming it. I'm not allowing it to fulfill the action. And that is why he says yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that chitta The quality of the chitta is it is molecular. It is molecular.
Chit is also molecular.
It is manas. Tauriya Sahib has taken the thinking instrument as the manas.
Manas.
So it being molecular, you can dam it. That is why you can pause it, Nirodha. Right? So the manas goes out, it brings the impulses inside. And there's a whole science of those impulses. As we progress, I'll try to bring in Mr. Tawaria's science in everything.
Sir, any reference for this? This molecular and electromagnetic, this the manas is the molecular and all that.
So you will not find it anywhere except on the talks which I have given on Mr. Tawariaji's notes.
Okay.
So those will be on YouTube. Nobody else has talked about it in this way.
Yeah, because even the Yog Darshan, which by other authors, commentaries, they don't say anything like manas goes out and.
No, none of them.
No, nothing. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Shall we call it a day, Rajan?
Yes, we will.
Sir, there's one more question, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Sir, what is the difference between the brain and the mind? Because you had once said that brain oxygenates and mind modification of the mind and the oxidation of the brain. So what is the brain and the mind? Because I thought brain is a physical part of the body. I've been spending a lot of my time in thinking and I've not got any answer on that.
Supposing there is a tree, right? And 3 people are looking at the tree. One is a carpenter, one is a poet, right? And one is a painter, an artist. Now the impression of the tree on the brain cell, on the neuron, is same for all 3. That is brain. But the carpenter will say, this tree has so much of good wood, so much of bad wood, I can earn so much money from this tree. You understand?
Right.
If it is the poet, he will say, oh, the leaves are bare, the fall season has come. He will not look at so the mind of the poet is separate from the mind of the carpenter. The brain of the carpenter is the same as the brain of the poet. And if Picasso is looking at it, he say, oh, these trees are trying to reach God in the sky. Can you get it? So each one has a different mind, but the brain is the same. It is the same. That impression has fallen on the same neuron. Get it?
Okay. So how does the brain oxidate? Like it keeps on moving?
Yes, the brain oscillates between
Oscillates
between extremes.
Okay.
And because it oscillates between extremes, the mind keeps on modifying.
Modifying it. Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
One more question here from chat.
Somebody has asked a question on chat. What is the difference between universal mind and divine, our mind? I think about animals and I'll just give a small thing that animals come under universal mind. Man comes under individual mind, right? Man has the choice of not going to work. He can have a holiday today. A sunflower does not have the choice of not going to work. If the sun rises, the sunflower has to look at the sun. It has no choice in the matter. It comes under universal mind. It is governed under universal mind. It has no individual mind to make its own choice, right? If an animal is hungry and it sees its food, it can't say, I want to fast today. It will jump on the food and try to have a skill. A man can say, I'm hungry today, but I will fast today. This is individual mind, right? So there's a difference between universal mind and individual mind.
One last question.
Okay, one last.
By Aditya Singh. Is there a relation between the 8 stages of yoga and the 7 chakras of the body, and between the 3 bodies, physical, astral, and mental?
Oh my God. It's a very long question, Aditya. I don't think I can answer it in this. These are not 8 stages of yoga. They are 8 angs. 8 angs means They are different parts of the same body, and they all grow together. They are not 8 stages. They are not 8 steps. Ashtanga yoga. It is Ashtanga yoga. And my hand is not separate from my body. My feet are not separate, but they are angs of the body. They are parts of the body, right? So there is a body of yoga, and these are the 8 limbs of the part of yoga, body of yoga. We'll go into it when I come in the second chapter. I can't take your question today, right? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Rajen bhai, shall I do a small Shantika?
Yes, sir.
So we'll just end with a prayer for universal peace and harmony. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhino Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Right.
Next